right now, the ALT assessment will still continue. However, one of the pieces with the ALT assessment right now, a big concern was the readability level. And that was an accommodation that needed to be provided for many of our special ed youngsters. And there was a lot of controversy at the state level. Are we testing kids in reading, or are we testing them in the content? But the reading became problematic. And so now the state is looking at the Lexile level, which is why at grades 6 through 12, it'll be primarily computer-based, because the readability level will no longer matter. We'll be able to set the Lexile, or the readability level, and it'll be the content that will now be assessed. So there's the possibility that fewer kids may be taking the ALT assessment, but the state has no plans to discontinue that at this point in time.
Anything else? Tony?
And how many ELL students do we have?
We currently have 14. However, approximately half of them at this point in time, this year for one of the first times, have now been placed on monitors. And so a youngster, after they've received an adequate score of what was it, the BEPAs and the MELA-Os, of a 4 or a 5, can be placed on a monitor. And for 2 years, it doesn't mean there you've done, you've passed. We will continue to monitor their progress, monitor their success in the classroom. So we currently right now have 7 youngsters who are receiving direct services. 2 of those youngsters entered our system this school year with very little, almost no English in their vocabulary from international students. So we are providing more intense services to those youngsters. The bulk of our students, believe it or not, are over at the MAC right now.
So generally, these ELL students know some English.
Correct.
They're just not proficient enough to...
Conversational English comes quite easy and natural, especially, think about when we start to learn, some vocabulary in a different language. It's more the content. So a word like osmosis and photosynthesis, it's trying to translate that vocabulary now, as well as then the understanding of the material. So we have Lino D'Souza, who now spends about an hour a day. He starts his day at the middle school, and then he goes for about an hour a day over at the MAC, and he spends about an hour and a half over at the elementary school every single day, Monday through Friday.
Bouncing around from kid to kid.
Yes, yeah. And because, at the second grade we have 1 student, at the third grade we have 1 student, but yet each one of those warrants and needs services. And we have 2 students here at the high school right now who are on monitors. So if in the event that there's an assembly or there's something going on that the youngster isn't available for their ELL services, Lino then will do some consultation, and he'll meet with staff who are providing services for a youngster on a monitor. And if indeed we, need to then provide more direct services, then we'll be having a conversation on when we find the time for that. But we will get it.
Thank you for the overview of how you spent your summer vacation. It's very thorough, and we appreciate the update. I did have one item that I noted as you gave your report. You spoke of new certifications and licensing requirements. I just wanted to make the comment that I think we, as a committee, may want to look at our archive policy for certifications and licenses. I'm sure it's being done, but I think we as a committee want to look at it. So I mentioned that while Dr. Dargan is at the table, so she can get a head start in figuring out how we'll keep track of those, because apparently there's going to be some mandated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no longer can a teacher teach up to 20% outside his or her certification area. We have a number of staff that have now what's called an initial certification. An initial certification is good for 5 years of employment. But if you've spent the first year or 2 in your career as just a substitute teacher, the clock really doesn't start ticking. So it's really trying to track down now what year some of our staff are within their initial license, and then ultimately transferring and making application for a professional license. And several still get confused between a professional license and professional status. Professional status is you earn that typically on the first day of your 4th year in a district, unless a superintendent grants it sooner. Superintendent can only grant it sooner if you have been employed in the Commonwealth someplace else, and have attained professional status. So it's very rare that it's granted before the first day of the fourth year. But a professional license means you've been working for a minimum of 3 years under that certification. You've participated in a mentor program, you've gone through the induction program, and you have fulfilled whatever the other requirements are, such as a master's degree, etc. But we're working on that now more carefully.
Thank you.
Ann, so the teachers now won't be able to do that 20% outside?
Correct.
When does that start?
They started last year.
It's already started.
So how do we fill in all those holes with all these teachers that are in fact doing some of that?
We don't have hardly any. At this point, what we do have is some staff that are waiting for the state to catch up with their paperwork. We have some staff that sent paperwork in April. The state receives the paperwork, scans it into a computer, and until that is done, they will not even do an evaluation of that person's credentials.
But is it going to cause us to have any holes in the system?
We're hoping not at this point.
The state will tell them what they're missing.
Right.
It may be a course. It may be additional MTEL
Tests.
that they need to take. And Dr. Colley is working with every new staff in particular, and staff who may have been what was called the old house certification. So, for instance, I hold a K through 8 license, but I could not go now and teach in a middle school. I'm a generalist. I'm not content specific. But several years ago, I could just prove that I had a lot of math courses or math experience, and I could have been a math middle school teacher. That has now gone away, and teachers have had an opportunity to go take the MTEL to get themselves certified, etc. So it's now just a matter of checking through our records, making sure everybody's certified.
Thank you.
Good. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Technology update, Beth Lewis.
Okay, let's see. What did technology do during the summer? Here's the short list. One of the first things we got done was our submission of our end-of-the-year state report. This was especially significant this year because we were one of only 9 districts to actually get it done electronically, and that's kind of a big deal because it's tied to our RTT grant, which we get a significant amount of money for. And we had to, next year to actually finish it, so the superintendent can check that piece off. What that means is the 52 elements that are tied to our students is now being sent in real time. We still had to do the old-fashioned way for our staff, the student schedules, and the grades that students got in courses. So that was done. We did some professional development for staff and achieved 3,000, which you probably remember is the software package that we bought some licenses for that emulates the PARCC assessment. All of our 5th graders will be doing that. And basically this is going to give students much needed practice with nonfiction text. And for those of you who might be in my age category, it's sort of the computerized version of SRA on steroids, with the nice caveat that if I'm a science teacher, I can pull out a related science article, and the Lexile level is appropriate for the student, so it's much more individualized. They're also using it as a Title I intervention with the grade 4 students, so that's where that's at. There will be a parent training for the 5th grade parents coming up. We worked with the company to do that because there is a parent piece to it, because students can also, because it's online, do this at home as well. We have dipped our toe into offering online courses right now to our high school students using a product called Odysseyware. We have 2 right now that are doing it, but more students are being added in because it's got the flexibility of pretty much being able to do the major subjects that we teach at the high school as well as electives. So I've been working with a couple of students that are doing things with like business marketing and what the other one is doing. But I know there's a few more students that are going to be joining that. The way the licensing works for this particular product is that we can have 6 students on concurrently, but if that's just limited by however many hours there are in the day. Additionally, all of their resources are available to every teacher in the district, which is kind of a nice thing, because they have some good like movie clips and animated things they can bring up on their interactive boards. We did some iPads and laptops for both ELL and SPED. Those are beginning to be distributed this week with some purchasing. I can't thank Sandra Raposa, and it's a mouthful, her name, but she has been invaluable as far as identifying apps and how natural groupings for the iPads so that the same groups of students get the apps that they need. It's kind of a specialized knowledge that she has. The high school has rolled out a product called Career Dimensions to really help the students over their 4 years here plan out where they might have some career interests and what the education for those interests might require. And I'm sure Cheryl will be talking about that next week, but it's part of their advisory program they've put in place here at the high school. All of the SPED classrooms across the district have been sort of standardized with a universal design with computers that have touch screens. And we've put those in as many places as we can at the elementary school as well. So it's not something that looks different. It's something that's just sort of the same from classroom to classroom.
Excuse me, Melissa.
Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering, is there something I'm following along on this? Because
No.
we're really covering a lot of information. It would be my suggestion that perhaps we look forward to this report and postpone the conclusion of it, because it's really quite a bit of information from iPods to special education use of technology, and I'd like to see something about it before we have our meeting. So.
She's here.
And it wasn't.
She's here and she's losing me, so that's why I'm making that request.
Do you have a preference, Art?
I do like to see things prior, but it's whatever you guys want to do.
Why don't you, could we, maybe, Michael, would it be okay if we finish the presentation and then we'll have you come back again next meeting and just sort of give us a synopsis, a quick one, and then a breakdown of what you're going through, and then we'll have a visual at the
Sure.
next meeting. Does that work, Mike?
Actually, if we want to just make a point, when we come to our minutes next week, to include an addendum, which perhaps would be a report. Again, my preference is to
That's
see
fine.
it beforehand. Thank
Okay.
you.
That's fine. I mean, I usually do. It just has been sort of crazy with the first 2 weeks of school. ProTracks is a program that we put in last year that is sort of like the teacher's way of tracking their professional development, but we worked with the company to include with that the ability to do all the teacher evaluation forms, because it was really important that those forms stay out of email and be secure. So they've been really good working with us, and I think that there are going to be a lot of districts that are pretty jealous about the way this has turned out. Along with the Achieve, we have Chromebooks that we've put in, and they are kind of what they sound like. They're a product that works very well with Google. They're very fast to start up, but they have a keyboard, which is kind of what makes them different from like an iPad type device. But that will be mostly for the students using the Achieve products, but when they're not in use, they can be used by everyone else. We moved to Google Apps. We're rolling that out to a few daring teachers, and they're going to be working with me hopefully in February to do some professional development more widespread. But that's sort of like Microsoft Office, but in the cloud, and that we were able to do for free. I had put in an application for that, and it was accepted. The new website is actually part of that, which I hope you have all seen, and I think that you have all seen the school committee piece of that. We moved to Moodle 2.0, which will talk very well with the Google Apps, and I have a few teachers piloting that at the moment. And a new grade book, and then every computer in the district has been updated and moved and cleaned and reconnected after they go in and wax.
So suffice it to say, technology has been busy the first
Yes.
couple of weeks.
Yes.
And Beth usually does come with something